sip some tea while we spilling the tea. Yeah. Real talk, real smiles, dentistry. Safe space vibes, clarity. Pull up a chair, yeah, your family.
Well, girl, we're back.
We are back. Hello, everybody.
Oh, wow.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to another edition of
Spilling
the
the tea.
Not the tea, but the teeth.
Yes.
All right. So, what do you want to get into? What do you want to dive in today? I'm thinking that we should probably talk about the choices, all the choices that we have here in dentistry.
Yes, let's do that. Let's start with the fact that we're both assistants. You're a dental admin assistant, and I'm a chair side and admin assistant. Let's talk about the difference between it being a job versus a career choice.
Oh.
Because oftentimes you find that, much like yourself, so we started in the beginning, you kind of stumbled into it.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so I did it intentionally. Some people go into this field intentionally. Some people go into the profession of assisting or administration intentionally. Mm-hmm. Like we learned in the first episode, I was intentional about it. However, oftentimes once we're in the career and we're actually working in the office, you stumble upon situations that make you want to rethink whether or not you want to be here.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, we get into these positions and we view them as jobs, and especially dental assisting. I think a lot of assistants view it as a job because they feel like there is no long-term growth.
That is very true.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah. So to get into the job, to get into this career, to get into this field with purpose versus I need to get into some healthcare field that allows me to get in relatively quickly and make, decent, average to decent money.
Oh yeah, that's usually when there's no purpose into it.
Right.
It's becoming kind of like a survival. Like I need something where I might not have the experience, but I can see here that, we'll train.
Right.
And this will be paying more than what I could possibly be making at Walmart or Target,
Right.
which often is not true.
Correct.
But working in some type of medical profession, to some view it as a flex.
Right.
And that working retail is kind of definitely like bottom barrel.
Right.
Which is a very big misconception because a lot of people who have stayed in retail and have become quite good at what they have done have actually been buyers for major retail places or even worked as like a stylist.
Right.
It doesn't matter how you work what you got to get what you want.
Exactly. And it's also the mindset of the position that you're in. So for me, it's always been, I'm an assistant, but I'm not just an assistant.
Right.
I always viewed it as a career. I'm going to be in this long term. And so what are my options within my profession to help me grow and be in this long term? A lot of times we talk about burnout in this field. Burnout versus being fulfilled. How do you balance that? How do you determine whether or not you're fulfilled or you're just burning out? How do you set those boundaries? And that's the thing you do. You have to set boundaries.
Well, a lot of people don't know how to do that, unfortunately. Some people view it as going against the grain or not being a team player, unfortunately. And sometimes, depending on the practice that you're at, sometimes, not saying that it's intentional, but sometimes kind of foster a falseness of safety in being able to communicate that that's how you're feeling. They don't feel safe enough to do it. Whether it's been verbalized in a way for someone to kind of interpret it that way, or that it is implied, I guess.
Right.
I'm not trying to sound repetitive,
Right.
but sometimes things can be perceived by action, or even verbally, whether
Right.
it's indirect or directly. But that happens a lot in our field, unfortunately, because a lot of tasks and duties of a person's job functions are consistently stacked.
And sometimes the lines get blurred.
Mm-hmm.
There was a question posed in a social media post where an assistant said, the question was, the doctor went ahead and decided to do extra treatment, and it was going to run after hours. So they decided, the office closes at 5, but they decided at 4:45 that they were going to do a procedure that takes about an hour and a half. Didn't bother asking anyone if they had plans or whatnot. And this assistant was in a place where either it is expected of you to stay or implied, as you said, whether it's through action or inaction, and didn't know what to do. She felt like if she spoke up for herself, that she would be viewed as, like you said, not a team player. And the amount of answers, the variety of answers, kind of shocked me a little bit.
Oh, do tell.
So a lot of the answers were, it's part of the job. It's what you signed up for. It is sometimes, unfortunately, what happens, and you have to roll with it. The way I've been able to sustain and still be enthusiastic after 38 years as a chairside assistant is to set those boundaries. My answer would be no. Now, the first time that happened to me, a doctor said, "Can you stay?" And my answer was yes, until 5. But I think the doctor thought that
You gave him the okay.
I gave him the okay that if it ran over 5, that I was going to stay there. Well, respectfully, this is what I did. When 5 o'clock came around, because at the time I still had a child who I had to pick up from daycare, and everyone knew that. So what I respectfully did was at 5 o'clock, when it was time for me to leave and he was in the middle of the procedure, I took the saliva ejector, turned it on, gave it a little bend, took out the high-speed evacuation, put that saliva ejector in the patient's mouth, and I said, "You okay? All right. I'll see you tomorrow." And I think the doctor was stunned. Stunned, number one, that I kept my word. I don't know why he was stunned. I said, yes, I can stay until 5.
Yeah, you did.
And when 5 o'clock came around, that was the cutoff. So at that point, I think he knew that, yeah, you don't, no. And it's okay. It's okay to set those boundaries, because if you don't, you'll end up being burned out.
Yeah, I know firsthand because I personally worked with a doctor who consistently would try to do similar to what you were just talking about. And this is before I relocated and I needed to get out at a certain time. Otherwise, I had to be spending the night at his house. And that wasn't happening because his wife would come into the practice, because she was a permanent fixture there too. But, yeah, you have to, it took me a long time to set those boundaries. What pushed me to create a boundary was that there was one time where he actually played with my money. He played with my money. Payroll was supposed to hit Friday. Saturday, I go to balance my checkbook. I am overdrawn because things I had allocated in the timely manner that they were supposed to, because it was because I was very diligent about that. So before things would come out the money was going to already be in
Right.
there.
It was synchronized.
Right, because Friday it was showing as it was pending. Usually what always happens without failure with my bank is that Saturday morning at midnight, it cleared.
Right.
So then everything else that came to hit the account after, like Saturday,
Right.
after a certain time, um,
It would clear as well.
correct, and it did not. And I went in there Monday morning, and he was like, "Good morning," and I was like, "Well, it's gonna be really good. Can we have a conversation real quick?" And then so it was just the two of us in the office, and it was very uncomfortable because, and this is not the first time that it had happened. With a money situation. And I kind of gave grace because, he kind of gave me an explanation. He kind of gave me a why.
Okay.
But then when the why became repetitive,
Yeah.
I was like, why does got to keep happening? So, I went in there that Monday morning and I said, hey, here's the thing. I'm going to need you to, write me another check right now because the check that you were supposed to deposit, it bounced, and now I'm also being charged overdraft fees.
Right.
So I'm gonna need you to fix this. And so he definitely did. I went to my desk and make sure that I could
Right.
deposit it right then and there, and it did clear without me having to pay any additional fees.
That's good.
And I told him, I said, going forward, please know that if your money problems become my money problems, it's going to be a problem. So please, I hope that we don't have a revisitation of this.
Mm.
I just said it in that tone. I just said it in that tone.
Right.
And he's like, oh yeah, okay. And that was pretty much the gist of that. And I just say that to say, without going too far deep into it, is that you do have to create some type of boundaries because if you come across as that person that's always very forgiving, which I am,
Yeah.
I always give people the benefit of the doubt, which I always do, because I understand that situations happen,
Right.
but a lot of times we are taken for granted.
Yes.
And ran over and kind of just ignored. And then the moment that we do, like, hey, okay, this isn't cool anymore. I didn't say anything before. It's becoming habitual at this point. Then you're the problem.
Right.
So I see why you've always told me this is why I do it at the very beginning. So
Right.
that's basically like when someone says, hey, if I'm going to show up late all the time, I'm gonna tell them at the interview, like, hey, I want you to know who you hired.
Exactly.
So I get the method to your madness.
Yes.
Some of us are not very vocal,
Right.
which I'm slowly, even still at my age now, I'm still learning to slowly become like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but for me, with the boundaries and the burnout, coming from, things being stacked and you being asked to stay late to take one more than, than you probably should be. And no one is actually on your team willing to help you. And it's supposed to be a team.
Right.
So I think that's why it kind of also goes to why people in this field don't feel that dentistry, and I've heard this quoted, dentistry ain't it. That's why they're feeling that.
Right.
And then a lot of times they kind of feel that they've hit their growth ceilings.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And like a prime
Mhm.
example of this is that there's a lot of corporate dental offices and some offices that are private practice that have adopted those operating type of ways. And so they have I guess points of which you get to in your professional journey in that particular role. And your growth is contingent on how, what you've adapted from wherever you are in that moment, which would be contingent on how far you're able to grow in that role. Am I making sense?
Yes. Yes. So, an example of that would be, and I can only speak from an assistant point of view because I'm an assistant, but assistants tend to think that the chairside role is the ceiling. And then when you are in that role, that you get to a certain dollar point, and then you hit the wall, you hit the ceiling of that. And
That makes a lot of people move on.
and it does. It makes people check out and view it as a job, and
they check out mentally first
and look for the next opportunity. Now, the reason I didn't do that is because I didn't see that ceiling. I didn't see it. I didn't see that there were limitations on how far I could take my career. So being chairside, it's just a matter of not viewing yourself that way. And this is how I viewed myself, right? So I've viewed myself as an independent contractor. I'm my own entity. I'm my own business. I happen to be a dental assistant.
Your own brand.
I'm my own brand. I'm a dental assistant brand, but I work with this company. I work with this office. And so my limits are only what I set in my mind. So for me, I'm an assistant and I can do just about anything I want to do. And I think part of the confidence that I had is I have confidence in my skills. I have confidence in my abilities. And so for me, it was limitless. What I could do, how much I could make. And of course, it's all contingent on what state you're in and what your scope of practice can be within your license or whatnot. And there's a lot.
It kind of sounds like you redefined the success.
Absolutely. That's exactly what
So you kind of cracked the code.
I have cracked the code on being a successful dental assistant.
Sort of like being a producer. Being a go-getter, taking initiative.
Exactly.
Sometimes a doctor does need to be led, whether they're seasoned or not.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And so what I have done throughout my career is just that. I have viewed myself as a co-pilot in that operatory. I have removed myself from the helper role. And I I've started viewing myself as someone who is a co-pilot in truth.
And I think that's what get lost in the sauce too, because I think a lot of assistants, depending on the dentist that they're working with,
right,
kind of make them feel that they're only in this particular role, they're only doing this. But the dental assistant, whether they're expanded functions or not, is the co-pilot. It's like what the nurse is to the doctor,
right?
Or what the medical assistant is to the nurse practitioner,
right?
That you're supposed to work in tandem and not just. I know you've never seen Game of Thrones or anything like that, but whenever there's like the king that sits on the throne, they have their cup bearer to bring them things, and a lot of these doctors, instead of having their assistant really behave as an assistant, they have them being their cup bearer to kind of just bring them what they want and need in the moment, and not really, there's no teamwork in that situation. There's no, it's supposed to be like tennis.
Right.
Basically.
Exactly.
And it's not.
It's not. So, and I understand trying to figure out, when you're in an auxiliary role, whether it is admin or assisting, trying to figure out your long-term vision for yourself.
So to kind of like pivot, right?
Right.
To see, because there's other positions that you can do in this field.
Yes.
I have been multi. I started out as front desk. I had moved from front desk to working sterilization, which I had mentioned before, because that's kind of how, and I wasn't in sterilization long because they needed me to quickly start working with a hygienist. So then I quickly became a hygiene assistant. And then from there, I've worked with a couple of doctors, chairside, while trying to get my radiology license. And I didn't test very well. I've never been I could recite what needed to be said, but I wasn't a good test taker. And a big part of that was because the things that we were taught in the class were not on the test. Not one question. Not one question. I'm like, we didn't go over this.
Right.
What in the world?
Right.
And so, so that's that with, so I decided to, I didn't decide, I should say. I decided to become better after I was personally pivoted to work from the back to the front. And, trying to find my niche in there, and I finally have done it. But it's not something that you should be ashamed of because some people like working in the front versus more than working in the back. And that's
Right.
totally okay because
Right.
sometimes you have to play to your strengths. I, for the longest time, did not know what my strengths were. I know that I
Yes.
was overly nice. I know that I kind of went above and beyond. If I saw someone struggling, I would always feel bad for them and I would try to, like, in the sense of like a patient trying
Right.
to navigate, what questions to ask when it comes to going to
Mhm.
their HR or, trying to pick dental coverage for
Right.
themselves, just trying to give them some type of insight. And I saw that that was my superpower because it was very customer serviceable.
Right. All customer
I mean, I've been
service.
told that I could work in a hotel and hospitality.
Yes.
And I was like, never thought about
Mm.
that. But I tried to marry that hospitality into dentistry because that is a place where a lot of patients come into already scared and apprehensive.
Yes.
So when they meet someone who has that hospitality, and
Right.
partially probably because I'm a little Southern too,
Mhm.
so that kind of goes into that.
Yes.
So I was able to, pivot it, and I don't feel bad about that. I
You
mean,
shouldn't.
there's sometimes I do miss assisting,
Mhm.
for some days where it's a little too much being up at the front,
Mhm.
but I know that that's where I flourish, and I know that that's
Yes.
that's my wheelhouse.
Yes. I learned about how to be customer servicey, as you say. Number one, I learned a lot from you. A lot from you. Because I'm a matter of fact person.
Yes, you are.
And I had to learn that matter of fact can come across as cold and mean. And so I had to pivot from that. But where I really learned it was when I became a server as a dental assistant. And I realized at that time, people come to the dentist because they feel like they have to.
Oh, yeah.
But people were coming to the restaurant because they wanted to. And so they wanted to spend their money at the restaurant, whereas they didn't want to spend any money in the dentist chair. And that's where I learned, like, okay, the skills that I took from dentistry,
Mhm.
I brought them over to being a server.
Mhm.
And the service that I was providing to the customer was much like the service I was providing to the patient. And I was getting tipped hand over fist. I had a regular customer for $2 every day. He would come in and get his cranberry juice and leave me $50 tip every single time he came in there. And he came in there probably about 3 or 4 times
Because
a
of
week
your customer service.
because of my customer service.
I guess that's why I've gotten jewelry from patients.
Yes.
I've been given like a Christmas time a little envelope with something. I'm thinking it's just like a thank you, and I opened it up. It's like $50.
Cash money.
I'm like, all I did was make your appointment.
Right.
And even like some of the reps, because I'm so nice to them.
Yes.
Even if I'm not meeting with them, if I'm not in an office manager's role,
Right.
like where I am currently now, I'm not. But because I do talk to the reps, just, I mean, even if I can't help them or if we're unable to use their services, then I'll send them your way. Or I'll
Yes.
send them to another office that, I know a colleague that may be managing and could use them. But just because of the fact that I've even gave them any type of attention,
Yes.
I'm giving free gifts. And I'm not saying that you do that just for the free gift. You do it because that's who you are.
Right. Customer servicing.
But what is your long-term vision in this field?
Well, I hope to stay in it as long as possible. I hope to stay in it until my vision doesn't let me see, and I can't do it anymore because I really love the position that I'm in. I love what I do. I'm really good at it, and I'm not ashamed to say I'm really good at it. It's not arrogance; it's facts. Um, because that has allowed me to do other things too. I speak on the national stage, at all these big dental conferences. I'm a guest speaker. So it's allowed me, my confidence, my skill level, and how I behave in my role has opened other doors within this industry for me. So long term, I see myself doing it until I can't.
Um,
How about you?
you know, at some point, I'd like to see how much further I could go in this field, whether it's still being boots on the ground, so to speak, in an actual physical practice, or more so behind the scenes in training and speaking,
Yes.
from a front desk perspective, because a lot of times in our field it's just regurgitating the same stuff
Right.
without polishing those and fine tuning and, those team members that have been put in certain roles, especially in the front, because girl, the way that some of these team members answer the phones, even different spaces that I've worked in, I'm not saying that the way that I answer the phone is perfect, but just thank you for calling smiles.com. How can I help you today? Or smiles.com. This is Teresa. It's so dry.
I know.
It's so dry. I mean, you want
It's
to
the
sound,
little
you want to,
things.
I mean, I remember back in the day, people used to say, I want to hear you smile, and I used to, because when I first came into this field, I was not a smiley person because I was going through some things, but I was still very professional.
Right.
But that wasn't my personality. I have grown into a much different version of myself. But I think when people mostly hear me, I don't know if they hear the smiley part, even though I am in a happy, jovial mood. But, when I ask them, how can I help you smile today? It doesn't matter which tone, even if I have laryngitis. Oh, you made me smile.
Right.
That's so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
And the conversation just goes from there.
Yes.
It's a pleasant conversation. They get scheduled and all of that. But I'm curious to see how much further I'll be able to go, whether, like I said, if it's going to be physically in an office or
Behind the scenes.
And I wouldn't mind that. I would not mind training the new and uppercomers, because this generation and the ones that are entering into the workforce,
Yes.
doctors, you better be prepared for some high turnover and some disgruntled patients. I'm just saying. So this is another episode
In the bag.
but we're going to be coming back with another one. So please keep your cups ready, because we will continue to pour.
Yeah. This is tea.